Hi, everybody. Sam Mewis here with another episode of Friendlies. This week we have Canadian and Portland Thorns midfielder Jessie Fleming. I have always admired Jessie from afar as one of those midfielders who's just like doing everything right all the time. And Jessie was such a joy to talk to. She's smart and funny. She was on time for the interview, so she's really checking all the boxes it requires to be my friend. And I do consider us friends now. Lynn Williams and I put out an episode of Good Vibes this Tuesday. We got to see Lynn's championship ring with Gotham from last season's championship. We also talked about the latest NWSL news, the trade request from Houston's Maria Sanchez, and we discussed the upcoming Champions League semifinal games that are happening this weekend. You can actually watch those Champions League semifinal games for free on DAZN. It's Chelsea versus Barcelona on Saturday morning at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and then Lyon versus PSG on Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Just make an account on DAZN and then tune in completely free. These games are going to be incredible to watch. One thing that we didn't get to cover on Tuesday's episode of Good Vibes, or in this episode of Friendlies with Jessie, as it was recorded a couple of weeks ago, is the breaking news that the Portland Thorns are restructuring their technical staff. They're moving head coach Mike Norris to technical director, while assistant coach Rob Gale steps up as interim head coach. This move, this change, it's likely a response to the Thorns' difficult start to this NWSL season. They're 0-1-3, so on just 1 point and in last place right now, which is not a place that we're used to seeing the Portland Thorns. The Thorns will conduct a global search for a new head coach, which is exciting and a little bit scary to imagine. I'm sure they'll have really high standards and bring an incredible coaching talent into the league. Earlier this week, we also dropped an interview between Raj and Rosie Hughes, Wrexham women's striker. If you've been following along with Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney's docuseries, Welcome to Wrexham, you'll have seen Rosie Hughes in season 2 when they highlight the women's team. Rosie is incredible. She works a second job at a prison in Wrexham, all the while scoring goal after goal for her club. I really encourage everybody to go back and listen to that episode because it's truly so inspiring and really special that we got time with such an amazing player and person thanks to our friends at Stoke. Really quickly, we got an update from our friend, Sarah Groats, who wrote to us earlier this year about running the Boston Marathon, and she asked for some recommendations around the city. Sarah ran the marathon on Monday, and then she sent us this email. I had an okay time in Boston. I was so amazed by how much the city shows up for this race. I've never experienced anything like it. Race day was hot, and the hills on the course beat me up more than I anticipated. It was a struggle towards the end, but I'm so proud of myself for finishing and having fun. Thanks again for the recommendations. I was able to get to Madhouse and Neighborhood Wines. I hope you've gotten lots of dog pictures since my initial email. Sarah, congratulations on such an amazing accomplishment running the Boston Marathon. I'm so glad that we got to come on this little journey with you, and I am so grateful that you shared with us. If you want to have your email or question read out on the show, send us a note. You can email us at womensgamemib@meninblazers.com. womensgamemib@meninblazers.com. All right, everybody, let's get to the interview. Here is Jessie Fleming. Jessie Fleming is a Canadian midfielder who just came to the NWSL to join the Portland Thorns after almost 4 years with Chelsea. Jessie got her first international cap with Canada when she was only 15 years old, and now at 26. Happy birthday recently, Jessie.
Thank you.
She has 128 caps for her country. She's also an Olympic bronze medalist and an Olympic gold medalist. With Chelsea, she made 111 appearances, won 3 WSL titles, 3 FA Cups, and her recent move from Chelsea to the NWSL's Portland Thorns is one of a number of signature moves that the NWSL has made that's part of this larger power dynamic between the English League and the American League. Jessie is one of the tidiest midfielders I've ever played against. She hardly ever loses the ball. She has incredible vision and technical ability, and she seems to always be in the right place at the right time on both sides of the ball, which is annoying to play against, but so impressive. She went to UCLA, as did I, go Bruins, where she scored 25 goals in 75 games in her time there. Jessie, I am so excited to get this chance to speak with you. Welcome to Friendlies.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to speak with you too, Sam.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have you. I remember talking to you when you were on your official visit at UCLA. You must have been like 16 or maybe younger, but my coach like pulled a few of us aside, like me, Abby Dahlkemper, Caprice Didasco. And my coach was like, this is the most important recruit we've ever had. Please convince her to come here.
No, I actually remember this as well. 'Cause I told a couple people about this when I told them I was coming on this podcast. And I was like, yeah, I spoke to Sam on my official visit.
What do you remember? Like, did we help convince you to go to UCLA?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I needed a lot of convincing once I had seen the campus and I can't remember which game it was, but I got to see you guys play in a pretty big game, I think. And yeah, it was a pretty easy sell for me. Once I was out in California, I loved it. So
I know.
But yeah, you guys helped. It helped.
Oh, thanks for saying that. Well, I felt the same way when I visited UCLA. Like, I had visited a few other schools and this one felt so far from home. But as soon as I saw the campus, I was like, oh, like I'm obviously going here. It was just so beautiful. I felt like the team was really welcoming, but UCLA didn't really ask me to do anything like that for any other recruits. Like, did you feel that this was unique, that they really, really wanted you because you were so good?
I don't know. I think coming from Canada, I didn't know exactly what to expect of the whole recruitment process. And so it was all pretty new and different for me. So, I mean, I thought it was really cool getting to speak to players like yourself and Abby and Caprice, who, had a lot of success at the school. So I think for me, that was just, really cool.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, I always hear about how smart you are. And I remember before you went to Chelsea, you were continuing to study and finishing your major. School seemed like it was really important to you. And I know that you majored in materials engineering with a minor in environmental science. Was that hard? How smart are you?
I don't think I'm that smart. I think I work hard. My brother majored in engineering too, so I think I kind of took after him a bit. But yeah, if I could go back, I probably wouldn't pick to do engineering again just because of the stress of managing the load with playing. But yeah, I learned a lot, I think, in terms of stress management and how to problem solve in school. But yeah, I've always liked learning and reading and that whole process. I grew up in a family of bookworms, so I've just always kind of been around it.
Oh, do you still really like reading now, for fun?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's one thing I've really enjoyed post-school is just being able to kind of read whatever books I want in my free time.
Well, I feel like you just joined the bookworm team in Portland. Have you guys talked about books yet?
Yeah, so from what I can tell, they're quite heavy on fantasy and fiction, and I'm more of a nonfiction person.
Oh my gosh,
maybe
of course you are.
We can give each other some recommendations and I'll branch out into what they're reading. But yeah, it seems like a lot of people are into reading, which is cool. And obviously Powell's is in Portland, so that was one of my first stops when I got here, and we'll definitely be going back.
Oh my gosh, I know. Powell's bookstore is amazing. So I know that you're from London, Ontario, Canada, but you've now lived in LA at UCLA, London with Chelsea, and you just recently moved to Portland. What has this journey been like living in all of these places? Did you ever think you would travel all over the world like this? What's been your favorite place to live?
Gosh, I definitely didn't think I was going to get to do all. I mean, I think it's hard to, predict what you're going to get to do. But yeah, I feel really lucky to have gotten to have lived where I have been. And I think each place is so different. Getting to live in California, obviously the weather is really nice there. And Los Angeles is a really cool city. And then, London is cool in a totally different way. I think with all the museums and the history of Europe. And I loved riding the tube and how easy public transit is there. And then the Pacific Northwest, I actually really love. I spent a lot of time in Vancouver just with the national team, and my little sister goes to school there now. So that's kind of cool, and it kind of feels like a second home to me. So I really enjoy being back in the Pacific Northwest. But yeah, I feel like all the cities are so different, and so yeah, I feel really lucky to have kind of gotten to experience those different climates and cultures.
I know. I spent about 9 months when I was playing for Man City living in Manchester, and I actually felt like something I loved about being there was that I had this sense of the history of football. It felt it's so much more a part of the everyday culture of every person. And I think even though it was such a short time, I loved living in that kind of energy where everybody was talking about soccer all the time.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like just on average, the public are so knowledgeable about soccer, and depending on where you're born in the country, you're kind of born into supporting a team, and everyone has a team, and it's like religion for them.
I know.
So yeah, that part was really unique about England for sure.
I know. It's so cool. Well, I do want to talk more about your time at Chelsea. I know you went to that team straight out of college, and you already had so much international experience, but you hadn't technically played professionally yet. So was the training environment when you first got to Chelsea like a big step up? And what was that adjustment like, learning to be a pro in an environment like Chelsea?
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge. It was probably the most challenging part of my career, I would say. I also went during the COVID year, and I was still finishing my degree, so it was kind of a lot of things at once. But yeah, I mean, obviously, Chelsea's such a high performing team, and they have so many good players, so it was a really competitive environment to go into. But yeah, I feel like I learned so much from that experience. But as far as my career goes, I would definitely say it was the most challenging time, just among like living in a new country, COVID. And it was definitely an adjustment just in terms of the speed of play, the physicality. You're playing with players that are older than you, stronger than you, and all of which at Chelsea have national team experience. So yeah, it was definitely a lot, but I think I learned a lot through that period as well.
Yeah, I know. That was actually kind of my next question. Like when you first got there were incredible other midfielders on Chelsea like Ji So-yeon, Pernille Harder, Aaron Cuthbert, Fran Kirby. And I'm so curious if you felt like playing behind players like that at a time, like you didn't start right away when you got there. Was that the best kind of training for you to have to really earn your spot because all these players in front of you were so good? Or did you ever think, oh man, like I feel like I'd be benefiting more from more playing time? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think that kind of speaks to my move to Portland. I definitely think playing behind players like Ji So-yeon and Fran, all those people you mentioned, benefited me, and I learned so much from them. But I also think there's a point in your career where you want to be playing a more consistent role, you want a bit more playing time, and that's how I kind of felt coming here to Portland, and was kind of what sparked part of my move. Is there's just so many good players at Chelsea, and I wasn't necessarily playing in that consistent role and getting those minutes, which is just the reality of being at a big club. And so I felt like maybe it was time to move on. But yeah, I think it served me really well for what it was, and I really enjoyed it, and I made some really good friends there. And to get to say that I played with Ji So-yeon and P, I feel so lucky. And they're such fantastic players. I have so much respect for everyone at Chelsea. But I think that kind of spurred on my move to Portland for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely going to ask you more about your move to Portland in just a minute, but I want to stay with Chelsea. You just spoke so highly of some of your former teammates, and this is like a silly question, but who has been your favorite Chelsea teammate and why?
Oh gosh, yeah. That's hard. I made some really good friends. We had a really good group of friends. I think my second year there was a group of us that would play tech ball together every day after training.
Oh, fun. Tech ball is like the ping pong table, but soccer.
Yeah, with the soccer ball. And so you play in pairs, and we would like blast Bob Marley and Bruce Springsteen music and play tech ball for like half an hour every day after training. And it was the best time. It was me, Magda Eriksson, Zachira Musovic, Anik Noen, Niamh Charles, sometimes P. Harder. There was just a group of us, and it was just a really special, fun time. So I think that was really special to me. And then this past year, I got to room with Niamh Charles, and she was always my bus buddy, my plane buddy, and her and I were, we were just really close, and we got along really well, and always kind of had each other's back in the environment. So there's a lot of people that stand out to me in different ways. I also had a really good connection with Sam Kerr, and she loved to make fun of me and poke fun at me all the time. We had a funny relationship, but no, it was a really good group of girls, and I speak really highly about all of them. I definitely miss them. Yeah,
I know. It sounds like you will miss them, but I mean, I think like one of the best parts about playing and traveling as you play is you make friends all over the world. And now if you go to Australia, you can you can kind of see friends wherever you go. I think that's been one of the most special parts for me, is knowing as I like move around, I'll kind of have somebody in every city that I've played with and have that relationship with. So that's amazing. So you played for Emma Hayes for almost 4 years. Under her leadership, your team won 3 WSL titles, 3 FA Cups. You also made the Champions League final in 2021. And you know that we are also excited for Emma to arrive here in the US to coach the US women's national team. But you know her so well. Can you describe her for us from like an insider's perspective? What do we have in store and what makes her such a great coach?
She's definitely got a pretty big personality. I feel like people can probably sense that from some of her comments or quotes in the media. Yeah, she definitely likes to throw the media for a loop every now and then. But no, I think 2 of my favorite things about Emma would probably be the competitive training environment she creates. I found at Chelsea that I really like the balance. I think it was serious when it needed to be serious, but then also we were able to chill out and laugh as a group at the right times. And I think she was good at dictating those moments of when, she demanded a lot from us and when we needed to be tuned in and then when we could switch off. And I also think that she's a massive advocate for the women's game and the growth of the women's game. And that's really exciting. And so, yeah, I'd say those are her 2 like superpowers as a coach and 2 things that I always really appreciated about her.
I'm sure it's like this at Canada too, but I think that competitive training environment that you mentioned, I feel like on the US team, that's such like an automatic thing, but I'm really, really excited to see Emma come in and have her influence on the training environment and the day-to-day. I feel like she's just going to bring this new energy that I'm really excited to see affect the team.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think she's good about kind of not allowing the moaning. And I know something that was maybe frustrating for me at times, but that I think was really helpful is that she often doesn't call fouls in training. So I would get like absolutely destroyed by Millie Bright. And she taught me to just, get back up and not complain. Because obviously, refs aren't going to give you all the calls. And so, she kind of just created this atmosphere where there wasn't a lot of tolerance for moaning. And if you got fouled, you kind of just had to get back up and get on with it. And she taught us to get on with things.
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh. Well, we're very excited for Emma to come join us over here in the States. Okay, so going back to your decision to join the Portland Thorns this January transfer window, you mentioned that you weren't always getting to play the role starting or getting as much playing time, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what were the factors going into your decision to leave Chelsea, and why did you feel like now was the right time?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was honestly so many different things, and I don't think there's ever a right or a wrong time to make these decisions. I think a lot of things kind of came up at once, and it felt like, just something that I wanted to do. Like I said, I was kind of playing a few different positions at Chelsea and kind of coming into more of a leadership position with the national team. I wanted to be in a place where I was playing a consistent position and could maybe have more of a leadership role with the team to try and get that practice and just get better at those things. And the most difficult part about leaving Chelsea was leaving my friends. And like I'd said before, I had a really close group of friends and teammates and felt really supported in that environment. But I think just wanting to go to a team where I maybe felt more valued as a player and would be able to play a more consistent role and more consistent minutes to just be in a better position to perform for my national team. And I think also for me, self-mastery is a really big thing and feeling like that was the right decision for me to keep developing as a player. And I also, when I moved and, after reflecting on this first game, I feel really excited because I feel like the athleticism and physicality of the league will be really good for me and will help me, kind of develop my game and having to play faster, obviously as a smaller player, wanting to avoid some of those challenges. So just practicing that. And so, I feel really excited for the season. Part of the reason why I wanted to move here is because I feel like, the different leagues offer something different and allow you to work on different things as a player, which is something that's really important to me. So lots of different things. Yeah. And I think also being from Canada and living away from home for so long, it's nice to be a little bit closer to home and get to see my parents and my siblings a bit more often and feel a bit more settled in my life outside of football. I was talking to you before we went live, but just being able to buy a couch or other pieces of furniture that I can have and keep for a while. It sounds silly, but I think those little things are nice and allow you to feel a bit more settled in yourself outside of the pitch.
Totally. Well, I was going to mention too that you do have teammates on Portland from the Canadian national team like Janine Becky and Christine Sinclair, who just recently retired from the international game, but is still going to play with you on Portland. Portland's kind of like Canada South. Like, I feel like you guys have this cute little collection of all of you. And I wonder if their influence and their presence on Portland will help you feel settled at Portland after this big transition.
Definitely. Yeah, it's definitely, I think I'm maybe a person that takes a little while to get settled in a new environment or to open up to new people. So having some familiar faces on the team is nice, and it's nice to have people to discuss little Canadianisms with.
Yeah.
So it's nice.
What are your Canadianisms? Like, are you guys just listening to Drake and Celine Dion in the locker room? Or are you talking about Tim Hortons? Like, what's the Canadianisms?
Yeah, Timmy's definitely gets brought up. I think the way that we say bag versus bag is in like a grocery bag.
Oh my God, I was like literally, what are you saying?
Because Americans...
I say bag.
So just, bag. Canadians say bag. Anyways, that's just like
Wild.
A teeny thing. So just little things like that. And then, just talking about, things that are happening on the national team or, that sort of thing is nice. And obviously I've played with Janine and Singh for a number of years too. So just having that connection on the pitch and them understanding me as a player is also a really nice thing.
Well, I say this all the time on this podcast. Like, it's so hard for me to cheer for Portland because for years I was like rivals with them when I played for the Courage, but I am very excited to watch you guys. I want to talk a little bit more about the Canadian national team. So to go way back, you got called into the team when you were 15. I'm so baffled by this. What do you think was so special about your game at that age to get recognized by the national team? Like, what were you doing that they were like, we need this young child to come in?
I don't know if there was anything that was special about me. I think it was a special time on the national team. John Herdman was our head coach at the time, and he was a pretty strong believer in bringing in younger players and kind of having them in that senior environment at a younger age to just develop earlier. And I think that's kind of the development model in Canada because of our lack of a pro league. So I think it's something that's kind of been consistent across our national teams is taking players at a young age and really developing those players. So I think I was somewhat lucky in that, I was picked to come into the team at a young age and got those exposures at a young age. I think I had played in an under-17 qualifying tournament and I had a really good tournament. So again, I think there's a little bit of luck in the timing of that and the timing of John being the coach. So yes, I had a good tournament, but I also think you can't ignore the luck that kind of goes into any given person's career. So it was a lot of different things at once. And I think I was fortunate in terms of timing for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously you would have wound up there eventually anyway, but you were so young at the beginning. And I'm kind of imagining like, you're sitting in high school in like algebra class and then you're like traveling next weekend to play Germany. Like, were you ever like, what am I doing sitting here in class? Like, I have this big game. Like, how did you deal with that as a teenager?
I was also lucky in that I have had a lot of good people around me. My parents were very supportive and I had an older brother who was always there to help me with homework. And I had a lot of good teachers who were accommodating and supportive of what I was doing. So I think I was able to kind of lean on some of the support systems in my life and they helped me usher through that time. And then with the national team, we've always had a really welcoming and positive culture. So I think my teammates helped me a lot too. And just a lot of the older players were able to provide advice and help me on the pitch and off the pitch. So there was just a lot of good people around me that helped me through that stressful or kind of like navigate all those things.
Yeah, I always hear, I think especially from Janine, Becky, who I played with at Man City, how close your team is. I feel like your Canadian team has just this really tight-knit bond and it feels from the outside like that's a part of you guys' success. But I also am so curious, and I think this is something people must be wondering about with all these young players playing in the NWSL right now, is how do you communicate with players who are such a different age from you? And if you remember anything about being 15 or 16 on the national team and having teammates who were 30, 35, how do you, even with a tight-knit group, find similarities and commonalities to bond you?
It's definitely a challenge. And, I'm starting to feel a little bit older on our national team now. I was having a conversation with a group of our Gen Z players at the last camp, and they were teaching about all this terminology and TikTok stuff, and I just had no clue what they were saying.
Gen Z is wild.
And yeah. I mean, I'm an old soul, so it kind of takes me up a few generations.
I feel like you're a millennial.
They were speaking a different language, in my opinion. But no, I think it's just being curious about one another. So, me being curious about their Gen Z terms and maybe them asking me some questions about what I'm interested in. I think there's little things you can do, like switching up which dinner table you sit at. And there's some like cultural things that you can maybe force on a group. But we always have a Canada room in camp, which is just like a spare room that we have like a Nintendo Switch set up at, and snacks and puzzles. And so people will go in there and you can puzzle, we've been playing Overcooked. It's a game on Nintendo Switch a lot. Okay. So that's been a big part of camp. Or we'll go through different card games, and we try to be inclusive and ask younger players to do those things. And I think just kind of going out of your way to make especially younger players feel welcomed, and just asking each other questions about their siblings or, their family or what they're doing in school. And just trying to be inclusive. And then I think within like our different on-pitch units, we kind of have older players who lead the way. And so I think trying to empower younger players to answer questions in meetings and kind of engage with them when we're doing extras. And so, I think it's kind of a culture that's been passed down, because I know when I first got on the national team, I had people like Sophie Schmidt and Desiree Scott who were just such nice people. And so that's kind of what I was taught. And now I feel really lucky to be in the position to hopefully help younger players and make them feel just as welcome. That's not to say that we haven't had rocky times and struggles as a culture, but it is something that I feel like we put work into, and it does take work, but I feel like a lot of it comes down to just being curious about the other people in your environment, whether it's staff or players.
Wow. It sounds amazing. Honestly, the team sounds like so wholesome, honestly. And like you guys really do appreciate and respect each other as people, which I mean, the US team does too. I just think the way you just explained that was so beautiful. Christine Sinclair, like who I mentioned recently retired from the international game, has been on this Canada team for a really long time. And I'm curious if you could describe Christine's leadership a little bit. She always struck me as someone who leads by example and someone that the team would just do anything for. And with her stepping away from your team, can you tell us a little bit about what kind of a hole she will leave, like what she's like as a person and a teammate, and then how you're going to try to fill that role?
I mean, first of all, I think, anyone who's had the pleasure of being in a team environment with Sink just can't speak highly enough about her. She's, like you said, she leads by example, and she doesn't always lead in the loudest ways, especially she doesn't speak that much to the group. She's pretty quiet and reserved. She does have a very dark sense of humor, so she is quite funny, which
I love that.
I don't know if everyone knows, but I always used to sit in front of her on the bus, and she would always, be cracking jokes behind me. But no, she leads by example. She does all the little things right, whether it's ice bathing or you'll see her doing extra running after training, even though she's been in the game for 20, 25 years. She would never ask anyone on the team to do something that she wouldn't do. And then in terms of communication, I feel like she speaks up at the right moments. And so when she does speak, you really listen. I think some players or people, if they speak too much, then their words don't carry as much weight. But with Sink, she, I think, reserves the moment to speak or say something or to say that things need to be better. So when Sink speaks on the pitch, your eyes perk up and you take it very seriously and listen to what she says. And then, I think, players respect her and want to do everything for her because she's just a good person off the pitch. And kind of speaking to the cultural piece before, I think she's a big part of that in terms of making younger players feel welcomed and seen. She doesn't have this aura about her that she's better than anyone else in our environment, whether it's our equipment manager, whether it's a 16-year-old who's just come into camp. So I think that's something that's really special about her. And now that she's gone, it's definitely weird for all of us. I don't think I've ever experienced a camp without her. So I think it just takes a while to get used to, but kind of similar to what I was saying before, I think enough of us have been around her and some of the other veterans for long enough that culture and those behaviors have kind of been passed on to us, and they taught us how to act and what it means to be a good teammate, how to behave if we're injured or if we're not playing. So I feel like she kind of lives on, and the culture lives on through what they've taught us. That being said, I think, the dynamics of a team are always shifting, and the leaders that we have on the team now aren't the same, and which is maybe a good thing. Maybe we have some people who are more willing to speak up and have louder voices. So I think for us, it's just about trying to adapt and figure out how to get the best out of the leaders on the team that we have now. So I think it's just a part of sport. Team dynamics are always changing, and it's just about trying to, figure out and optimize the best of what you have. But her mark, I think, will always be felt on our program. And she's just a legend. I can't say enough about her.
I know she is. She's such a legend. And you've talked so much about how inclusive your Canada team is. And so I just wanted to ask about one more of your Canadian teammates, Quinn, the midfielder who plays for the Seattle Reign. In 2021, Quinn became the first openly trans athlete to compete at the Olympics, and then, of course, proceeds to win gold with Canada. I'm curious, Jessie, how has the team embraced Quinn and their journey?
I've known Quinn since they were 16, I think, or 17. So we've known each other for a really long time. And I think just from an individual standpoint and as their friend, it's been so cool to see them kind of, just like find themselves and be more comfortable in themselves. So I think there was definitely a time where it took the team a little bit of time to adapt to saying they, them instead of she, her, which I think is natural. And but I feel like we were able to have open conversations about it as a team. And maybe some of those conversations were tough and difficult for people because, it wasn't something that we'd experienced on the national team before. But at the end of the day, and I think it's just been really cool to see them. They just seem so much more settled in themselves, and that makes the rest of us happy. And I also think it's really cool because in a silent way, they've given other people permission to be a more genuine version of themselves, which I think is really powerful when you see someone else do something that, in my opinion, is incredibly brave and vulnerable in front of a lot of people. I think that's something about sports is that like these things are happening in front of a lot of people, and I can imagine that was a really difficult time for them. So I think it has kind of empowered me as an individual to just be a more genuine version of myself. And I'm sure the other people on the team and other people who follow Quinn's story feel the same way. So I think there's like a time where there were some really tough conversations and it took a while to adapt. But honestly, I think on the team, we try to celebrate people just being a more genuine version of themselves. And I feel like you see that all over the league. And it just makes me really happy when, even on the Thorns, it makes me think of Megan Klingenberg. I feel like she's always just encouraging people to be themselves. And I think it's such a wonderful quality when someone is just themselves, and it just gives other people permission to do the same around them.
Yeah, it's like contagious. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate that. I want to follow up and ask about Canada's Olympic success. Your team won bronze in 2012, and then you won again in 2016. You were there for that. And I have heard a lot about the team's kind of internal mantra being, let's change the color of the medal. I don't know if that's like an inside term, but I think Janine might have told me. And then you guys did it. You won gold in 2021 at the Olympics in Tokyo, during which, by the way, you scored penalty kick after penalty kick, which I have no idea how you handle that kind of stress and pressure, taking penalty kicks for your team in these huge moments with the tournament on the line. Whatever from what I just said you want to talk more about, how did you guys turn your medals from bronze to gold? Like, what changed within the team? And how do you as an individual, like, take on these moments of high pressure?
I mean, I think there's a lot in there. I think one thing when I reflect on the Olympic gold and when I even reflect on the World Cup this past summer is just acknowledging how much luck and good fortune you kind of need during a tournament.
Totally.
Like, so many things need to go right, whether it's injuries and which players are available to you, or a penalty call going in your favor, or sometimes the ball just, doesn't bounce for your team on the day. And so I think a lot of things went right for us that tournament. But yeah, it was something that we spoke about after the 2016 Olympics. So it was something that we were conscious of in the back of our minds. And I think we had a bit of a disappointing World Cup. And for some reason, we've always been able to double down our focus on the Olympics. But I think we just had a lot of players in good form during that tournament. And we had a really clear identity as a team. And we were all kind of bought into the style of play that we were playing and doing what needed to be done to win those games. I think in terms of a pressure perspective, I don't know exactly what to say. I do always go back to our team culture, because I think there was always a feeling that even if I missed, my teammates would have my back. And so I didn't feel any pressure from our environment. And I think, kind of going back to my previous answer, that's something that we've always been good at as a team, is kind of creating a really tight bubble in tournaments. Yeah. And the only thing that matters to us is that group of people. And in a weird way, I think it being COVID kind of made that easier, because there wasn't all these outside distractions. So it was kind of easier for us to literally create that tight bubble and for it to just be our team. And so I think, it's kind of a question of how are we going to do that this summer when you're in a country where you can go out and get a coffee and walk around. And so I think that's something that was really important to us.
That is so interesting. Oh my gosh. I'm like, you guys should just re-implement the lockdown rules. No leaving the hotel.
I don't think my teammates would appreciate me suggesting that. But I'm just saying there was something positive to be garnered from that, I think, because we had to get creative in how we were spending time together. Like we did origami classes together, and we did like movie nights in our little communal room.
Oh my gosh, cute.
So we did like a painting night. So we had to find ways to kind of keep ourselves, and it was literally just us, our group.
Yeah. I also, Jessie, I love so much what you said about, like, I say this all the time. I would get so nervous for penalty kicks. Like, I would take them sometimes and I would act like I wasn't nervous, but I wish I had thought, like, well, if I miss, my team will have my back. Like, that's fine. And it's not that I didn't believe that. It's that I just kind of never thought of it. I think that's such an awesome way of thinking about penalty kicks. Like, yes, this is a moment that's on me, but there will be a bunch of other moments that the team can have my back in. And then the other thing I love that you said was how much luck it takes. I felt in 2019 at the World Cup, like if just one bounce of the ball had gone wrong in our game against Spain or our game against England or our game against France, that the game could have gone a totally different way. And I find it so interesting to hear you say that about your Olympics experience. You guys obviously did incredible and totally deserved to win, especially considering all those tiny little moments that did go your way that you executed on. But I really related to that to win a world tournament like that with so many games and so many factors, it does take sometimes a little bit of good fortune on your side.
This past World Cup has shown that the game is getting so much more competitive as well. So I feel like that message kind of resonates even more, because there's not really a game that you can go into and you're going to win 5-0 anymore. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Like, teams are more organized, tactically, just smarter. And I think with the PK thing, I know in the US game, like right before Sink gave me the ball, she kind of whispered to me, like, we have your back. So it wasn't just something that was kind of unspoken. It was something that we were constantly reminding each other as teammates. And so that's really special. But I think that's like also wanting to acknowledge that I was unbelievably nervous in all of those situations, which I think is totally normal. It's just like, if anyone feels that, oh, these professional players don't get nervous in those situations, then I think they're lying to you. I think it's so normal to be nervous. It's just about how you deal with those nerves. And, for me, I always just wanted to, like, just hit the ball where I wanted to and be deliberate about it. And so when I reflect on this past tournament that we played at the Gold Cup, I kind of chickened out a little bit on my penalty, and I feel like whiffed it instead of, really going for it. And not to say that I want to sky the ball, but I think I feel more settled in myself when I know that I've been deliberate and I've picked a spot and I've gone for it. And so, I think at the end of the day, that's all you can do. And also just acknowledging that there's some really good keepers out there, and maybe I put it in a really good spot and they save it. So I know I keep harping on this luck thing, but it's so true. Like, there's some things that are just outside of your control. Maybe the keeper makes a world-class save. And I think we need to be better about just acknowledging that aspect of the sport. And there's some things that are just outside of our control, and the soccer gods don't want us to win on a given day.
So earlier this year, the Canadian Soccer Players Association, representing your national team, filed a $40 million lawsuit against 15 current and former board members of Canada Soccer, alleging negligence and breach of fiduciary duty. I know this is just a small part of some ongoing issues between the players and the federation, and I also relate, having gone through an equal pay lawsuit with my Players Association and my federation myself. Is there anything that you can tell us or share with us about where things stand in this situation, or even just how it feels as a player to be going through something like this?
I feel like I can't say too much. These processes are always so slow and drawn out, which is frustrating in and of itself, but that's just the nature of these processes. And I think as a player, sometimes it can be frustrating, the distractions and feeling like you're fighting against your own federation, or that your federation's values and goals don't feel aligned with what is so clear for our team. But I also think that there's a sense on our team that we're trying to take steps to create a better program for the future, and that's really important to us. So I think there's kind of two sides to the coin, and on one side it's really frustrating, and on another side it just seems necessary. I feel like there's not that much information that I can add to shed light. Honestly, we probably know pretty similar to what's out there. But I would say that those are the two sides to the coin, and how I feel. I definitely have days where I'm frustrated and I struggle to understand some of the decisions that are being made, but then I'm also really inspired by, the actions that the U.S. women's national team took and what they've been able to achieve. And I think that's so important, and how they've kind of set this standard, and now the rest of the game has something to look at and work towards. So I think it's really cool and important that different national teams kind of keep sharing ideas, and we all kind of push towards a collective better game for everyone. So I think there's kind of different sides to the coin, and sometimes I'm frustrated because I'm like, why can't our federation act like this federation or whatnot? But I think that we've made progress, and that's what I just keep trying to focus on. And although sometimes it seems slow, I think little bits of progress you have to kind of acknowledge.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that you obviously have the support of all of the other players. I know that at least we know we all support each other. And I think what I would say is the main thing that I learned in our experience was that collective action was the most important thing. Everybody being united and on the same page is what allowed us to accomplish anything. And from what we just talked about, it sounds like that is not going to be your team's issue. Like, you guys sound like you have such an incredible culture, and that you will work to be on the same page about everything. So you have my total support. I think it's so important that we continue talking about this and supporting each other, and making sure that the game is left in a better place than when we came into it. So I just commend you guys, and I wish you the best of luck, and you have my total support. Okay. A couple quick fun questions now, Jessie. The hard part's over. I know I told you this would be fun. Can you describe yourself, but you can't use anything to do with soccer, just who you are as a person, no soccer?
Okay.
Was that the hardest question of all?
No, I think, no, it's a good question. And I feel like it's a question that people should be asking themselves, because we don't want to just be a soccer player. But no, I'd say I'm fairly introverted, probably a little quirky. I love to read. I love film photography, kind of some of those things that I feel like are becoming obsolete nowadays. I kind of like some of those older things. I'm definitely an older soul. And yeah, I always really looked up to my grandma and my mom, who loved to do everything in the kitchen, homemade. So yeah, and I try to be a curious person. Like I love learning new things or taking a pottery class or a cooking class. Yeah, so I would say I enjoy all those. I don't know if I really describe myself. I describe my interests, but yeah, I would say I enjoy all those things.
I think that you did great. I actually wanted to ask you about your photography. If you could, can you tell us anything more about it?
Yeah, I don't know. It's always just been, I honestly don't know when it started or why, but it's always something I've enjoyed. I think with my family, I always just had the camera on family vacations and really enjoyed it. And then my grandmother passed away a couple years ago, and when we were going through her house, my grandpa had all these old film cameras, and my mom snagged one for me, and so I've been using that the last little while. And
wow.
So yeah, I just have enjoyed it, and I'm really enjoying shooting on film. Just I kind of like the delay between. I think with digital sometimes it's so easy to take a photo and you get that feedback right away, whereas film you kind of get to be surprised, and sometimes it turns out a lot worse than you thought it was, but sometimes you're pleasantly surprised. So yeah, I don't know, I just enjoy it. Yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome. I love that. Okay, real change of subject. Just give us one misconception about Canadians.
One misconception about Canadians? I don't know. I feel like a lot of people think that Canadians eat poutine and really like poutine a lot.
And they don't.
I don't know. I've never really liked poutine. I don't think it's as big a thing as people think it is.
That's fair. That's definitely fair. I know this isn't Canada, but I did live in Buffalo, New York for 2 years when I played for Western New York. And poutine felt like it was a thing there. But that's also Buffalo, not Canada.
I think it's a bigger thing in Quebec, the French-speaking province in Canada. But at least where I grew up in my experience of Canada, poutine is, it's more, I think, one of those touristy things that people get when they go to Canada, but that Canadians don't actually eat that often.
Okay, well, speaking of tourist things, I wanted to talk about my favorite English snacks, which are Tucks, the crackers in the yellow sleeve. Do you know those?
No.
Oh my God.
Tucks?
What?
No.
Tucks, Tuc, the little crackers.
Or do they have chocolate on one side?
No, those are digestives.
Well, I know what a digestive is.
The McVitie's digestives.
I don't know what Tucks is.
Oh my God, I'm horrified.
Sorry,
I'll send you a picture.
Okay.
It's okay. And then what about Special K? Like, did you ever eat Special K in England, the cereal?
No, not really. I don't know. Yeah, no.
Oh my God. What are your favorite English snacks?
I don't know if I had anything that was specific to England. I always gave my roommate a hard time because I felt like the English didn't really have too much substance in the way of a cuisine, which I don't want to make too many people angry, but I honestly don't think I had anything that was specific to England. But I'm trying to think.
Oh my God, I had so many things. Every time my sister comes back from England, she brings me home Tucks, like the crackers that you don't even know what they are. I'm like, I'm going to text you a picture of them as soon as we hang up. You're going to know because they were probably in the team snack room. Okay, I need to move on from this. I'm like so appalled. It's okay. Okay, this will be my last question.
Okay.
Do you miss anything about living in LA?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely miss my friends, and I used to go to the beach every now and then to go see the sunset. Yeah. And I had this little mini camping stove, and I don't think we were supposed to be doing this, but we would roast s'mores on the beach, and it was our little tradition. Or at the end of exam week, we would go hike either like Runyon Canyon or somewhere in West Hollywood to see the sunrise. And then we'd go get a coffee. It was like our little end of exam. I don't know why we were choosing to get up early at the end of exam week, but anyways, that was our tradition.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Well, Jessie, I feel like as a former midfielder myself, I always have like just the most respect for other midfielders. I recently had Jess Fishlock come on the show, and I told her that she was my worst nightmare to play against, and I feel very similarly about you. And I'm like so sad that I never got to really play with you, because I feel like you would have like done all the dirty work and then I could have just had fun. But I, like, in all seriousness, I really do admire you as a player and as a person. You're someone who your hard work and humility and love for the game really shines through in everything that you do. And I'm really excited to see how this first season in the NWSL goes for you. You've picked a really special environment to be a part of. I know that you'll continue to crush it wherever you go. It's very hard for me to cheer for Portland, like I mentioned. And it's hard for me to cheer for Canada too, though. You make your team just sound so lovely that I'm kind of like, I feel like you guys are just so sweet and the best. So like, good luck kind of. But I really do wish you all the best. Thank you so much for being here. It means so much.
No, thank you so much for having me. I mean, I feel the same. I'm also a bit sad that you're, still not playing. Yeah, it makes me sad. We don't have to talk about that, but no, I definitely reciprocate all those feelings. And same thing. I love seeing a good midfielder play. So I have a lot of respect for other midfielders. And thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. It was so much fun. Good luck this season.
Thanks, Sam.
Oh my gosh. I feel like Jessie is my new best friend. I don't know how she feels about that, but what an amazing person. She's just so wonderful and so smart. I could have talked to her all day. It must be that UCLA education that we have in common. I am so happy that we had this chance to hear from her, and I wish her all the best with Portland and with Canada this year. Make sure that you're subscribed to our podcast feed. You can always rate and review this podcast, which actually really helps get this content out to more people who will enjoy it. And also, please make sure that you are following along with us on socials at Women's Game MIB on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Women's Game MIB and subscribe to our newsletter at the link tree in our social media bios, and get the latest in women's soccer updates delivered to your inbox every Monday. Next week, we have the iconic Bunny Shaw on the show, Jamaican and Manchester City striker who just keeps breaking goal-scoring records. Bunny is leading the way for Man City to possibly win the WSL title this year for the first time since 2016. She tells us all about what it was like growing up in Jamaica with, get this, 12 brothers and sisters. Stay tuned for this interview with Bunny dropping next Thursday. There is so much soccer on this weekend. I can't wait to watch it all. I will be back on Tuesday with Becky Sauerbrunn on Good Vibes. Thank you all so much for being here with us. We'll see you soon.